evening and welcome to our second debate of the night. This is our Democratic debate, and as you see, we have our candidates up on stage. I would like to take a minute and explain our mission a little bit. The Lackawanna League is a nonpartisan, which means that we do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. Our mission of the League is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation by citizens in their government. We encourage you to join the LWV. Membership information can be found in your program, or you can go to our website, printed in your program at www.lwvlackawanna.org. We are an all-volunteer organization. Please support our work by a donation on your way out. Donations help us cover the costs, including taping, so that the debates can be viewed by a wider audience. ECDB is taping tonight's debate. The taped debate will be available on YouTube via links from our website tomorrow. This is not a live broadcast. However, ECTV will air the program on Comcast 19 local TV. Please check the ECTV schedule. A link can be found in your program as well. Every candidate here tonight has signed a debate agreement that included our audiovisual policy as follows. No part of any authorized or unauthorized recording of this debate may be used or distributed by any person, candidate, campaign, or political group for any purpose whatsoever. You may provide a link to the ECTV LWV video on your campaign website. Any unauthorized recording is not allowed. To that end, we ask you to please silence and put away your phones and other devices. The most important event is Election Day, Tuesday, May 21st, excuse me. Don't forget to vote. A sample ballot can be found at Lackawanna County Elections website. And we're not doing election returns, right? So there won't be election returns at night. So next, these are our Democratic candidates, and our moderator is Andrea Mulrine. She has been a member of our board and past president. Andrea Mulrine.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you all for being here this evening, and most especially thank you to all of our candidates for joining us as well. As Patty said, this is the debate with the Democratic candidates for Lackawanna County Commissioner. We will be electing two of these during the primary election on May 21st, and then they will go on to face the Republicans that get elected in November. So there'll be two Democrats and two Republicans on the ballot in November, and the way that it works here in Lackawanna County is that the top three vote getters would be elected in November. So this is an important primary for us, and we're grateful that you're here. A couple of housekeeping details for tonight to let you know what we're doing. All of our candidates are seated on stage alphabetically. They have not been given the questions in advance, and most of the questions will have a 2-minute timed response limit. We do have a timer in the front. We ask them to just finish their thought. They will not go on and on after the time is up. Each candidate is also allowed up to 2 1-minute rebuttals. They can use the full 2-minute allotment at one time if desired. There are no opening statements from the candidates, and they will be allowed a 2-minute closing statement at the end of the evening. We ask everyone in the audience to hold your applause and any comments that you have until the end. When your candidate or candidates have given their closing statement, feel free to cheer loudly. But before then, we have a lot of ground to cover this evening, and we ask for your cooperation in that. So once again, thank you to our candidates for being here. Let's get started. I'll start by introducing Debbie Dominik. Debbie was born in Scranton, resides in Dunmore with her son. She's a graduate of Dunmore High School and the University of Scranton, and she received her law degree from Dickinson School of Law of the Pennsylvania State University. She is proprietor of Dominik Law and practices as a member of the Lackawanna County Public Defender's Office. She was a civil litigator with the Neil O'Donnell Law Firm and Margolis Edelstein. So Debbie, thank you so much for being here this evening. Next, we have George Kelly. George resides in Moscow. He and his wife Sharon are the parents of 3 adult daughters, and he holds a Bachelor of Arts from Cathedral College in Douglastown, New York, and an MBA in Finance and Investment from Marywood University. George has worked in local government as Lackawanna County Director of Planning and Economic Development. In this position, he implemented the countywide land bank, community reinvest program, Blight to Bright task force, and several others as well. His past experience includes positions as Vice President of National Security Corporation and Operations and Technology Director for Milestone International Asset Management. George, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jerry Notarianni was born and currently resides in Scranton. He and his wife, Susan, have 2 children. He is a graduate of Scranton Central High School and studied accounting at Wilkes College. He has worked in the family business AIT Auto Parts since 1972 and is currently the sole proprietor. Jerry is currently a Lackawanna County Commissioner and has served in the past as Lackawanna County Register of Wills. He's also been elected to several positions within the Democratic Party and served on the Lackawanna County Government Study Commission. In addition, he has served on the Scranton Zoning Board of Appeals and served on the Board of Directors for the Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency and St. Michael's School for Boys and the Act 101 program of NEIU. Jerry, thank you for being here this evening as well. And finally, Pat O'Malley. Patrick was born in Scranton, resides in Peckville with his wife and his 2 sons. He is a graduate of West Scranton High School and has received corrections officer and state constable certifications. Pat's elected positions include Lackawanna County Commissioner, which he has served since 2012 up to the present, and he also served 3 terms as a member of the Scranton School Board. In addition to his current position, Pat has worked as a County Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation and as a correctional officer at the Lackawanna County Prison in the past. Among his civic affiliations are the Hook O'Malley Division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians and Unico Scranton, Victor Alfieri Society, Friendly Sons of St. Patrick, St. Ubaldo, and many other things that Pat is involved in as well. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Let's get started with the questions. The first question for you is one of the only ones that has a 1-minute timed response. We did draw straws or numbers to see who would answer the first question first. Jerry, this goes to you. And the first question, are all of your local city, school, and county, state, and federal taxes and fees paid up to date, including garbage fees? This question covers your personal obligations as well as those for any business you may own or have a partial interest in. If you have outstanding delinquent balances, please briefly explain why and when you'll be paid up to date. The minute is yours.
I believe they are paid. I have recently checked. I'm unaware if they aren't, and if they aren't, I will resolve that, but I do believe they are all paid.
Okay, thank you. Pat, the question goes to you.
I've never had any delinquent taxes of any sort that I know of.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just doing a sound check. Pat, when you speak, can you pull that microphone a little closer to you, please? Thank you.
Sure.
Debbie, the question goes to you.
To my knowledge, I also do not have any delinquent taxes.
Okay, and also let's pull that microphone a little closer to you as well. And George, you've got the microphone nice and close. The question goes to you.
To my knowledge, I do not have any delinquent taxes, and I have to thank my wife because she does run a tight house and she makes sure they're paid.
Okay, thank you. Now the questions will be a 2-minute response time for each one of them. Pat, this question is going to go to you first, and we're going to talk about hiring. If you're reelected, what processes will you implement to ensure that those you hire into leadership positions are qualified for the role and have met their personal tax obligations?
Our current HR department does background checks and numerous interviews to make sure that we're getting the most qualified individuals to be part of the system of the County of Lackawanna.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, the question goes to you as well. If you are elected, what processes will you implement to ensure that those you hire into leadership positions are qualified for the role and have met their personal tax obligations?
I believe that they need to be properly vetted. I believe that everyone needs a thorough background check. Their qualifications need to be checked on. Their experience need to be checked on. Prior employment needs to be checked. And I believe that the person most qualified for the position, regardless of who you know or or what your gender is should be hired for any position.
Okay, thank you. George, that question goes to you as well.
I would change some of the current policies that are occurring. When I was hired, Commissioner Wanzak and O'Brien, they actually had me bring in my transcripts for my master's. One is to make sure that I did go to school as stated and that I really did have the degree that I have. The second thing is I would go back to the policy of when they hired me, that the department heads get to interview everyone beforehand to make sure they get qualified individuals, and that we get a list of candidates submitted to the Board of Commissioners, the final list of 3, so that we can get concurrence from our department heads that we do get the true qualified people and just not someone that knows someone else.
Okay, thank you. And Jerry, that question goes to you.
It's a very similar answer to George. We need to make sure we vet it properly and look at the people and make sure we do hire the most qualified people that we can conceivably find in Lackawanna County. It can't be someone because of their political affiliations or because of the where they live. I think it's important, and I think we'll be able to go forward in doing that.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, the next question goes to you first. So this question, let's talk about what's been in the news an awful lot, and that's reassessment. Lackawanna County has not completed a property reassessment since 1968, which is 51 years ago. At some point, it must be done. If not now, then when, and what is your rationale and your plan? And you have 2 minutes.
I am against reassessment. I know that there is a rule of thumb out there that says that there's a third and a third and a third, meaning a third will be increased, a third will be decreased, and a third will remain unaffected. However, that is purely speculative and based upon what I've read, has not rung through, is not true. Furthermore, even assuming that that rule of thumb does exist, we have 214,000 residents enlisted in Lackawanna County, so 1/3 of those, or 71,000 residents, we would have to be the one to tell them that their taxes would go up. I think it I know it would negatively affect the elderly, people who are living on fixed income. Some people, especially the elderly, live in their homes for a long period of times. If they're subject to a reassessment, they live on a fixed budget, and if their taxes go up, it's going to be between not being able to keep their home or having to cut off other expenses such as prescription expenses or medical expenses in an effort to try to pay their taxes. And there is an outlet. I mean, if somebody's not satisfied with their current taxes, they do have an appeal process, and I do believe that should be done as opposed to putting the low income and the elderly people who are on a fixed budget at risk of having a tax hike.
Okay, thank you. George, the question goes to you. If not now, then when, and what is your rationale and your plan for reassessment?
I had someone ask me this morning if I had to cast my vote today, would I vote for reassessment? My answer was no, not at this time. It's a very tough question. No one should lose their house because of real estate taxes. We need to protect those who need help, people low and moderate income, seniors on a fixed income. There's a task force that's out of Harrisburg where it's bipartisan, where they studied this for the last couple of years. They just came out with a 68-page guide on what is the guide and what questions should we be looking at and what analysis should we do before we undertake a reassessment. What I would propose and work with Jerry closely is to bring in the right experts to come in to do the analysis to determine what is the true impact of reassessment. I've seen studies. The Center for Rural Pennsylvania did a study, 11-year study, that said real estate values go up, incomes go up, it drives economic development, but I truly want to get to the right answers and do the right analysis and not just do a knee-jerk reaction that says, let's do a reassessment or not.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, the question goes to you.
I think the fact that it is overdue is an issue, but at this current time, it's in the court system. The question comes to how do you want to do it and who do you want doing it? There's the CCAP, the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, has a program to help counties do it. It's been over 51 years. I will wait for the courts to make that decision, but I think that George and I would be the best possible candidates, commissioners, to do that in intelligent, logical, and efficient way and make sure that no one is hurt. The rule of thumb of a third, a third, a third is basically about as old as our reassessment. That's not the case. There are over 1,000 properties in Lackawanna County that do not pay any real estate tax on their improvement at all. We did a program called Pictometry in Lackawanna County recently, and it gives us an idea of how it works. I had a customer come down. They took a permit out to build a garage 18 years ago. They got a new tax bill this year. She brought the old tax bill down, the new tax bill. The property had not been taxed in 18 years. There's lots of that's out there. A lot of these elderly people are paying other people's taxes, and that's an issue. Fairness is an issue. And again, it's not in our hands any longer. It's in the court system. I'll wait and see what happens. I'll follow the law.
Okay, thank you. And Pat, finally, the question goes to you.
I'm against reassessment. It actually went to a vote, and it went down 26,700 some to, I don't know, 12,000 something. The citizens of Lackawanna County spoke, very concerned about the fact of our senior citizen population. It could run them out of their households. Mr. Notarian is absolutely for reassessment, and that will destroy households in Lackawanna County, and the citizens do not want it. And if elected, Dominik and O'Malley will make sure that does not happen in Lackawanna County unless we're forced to by the courts.
Okay,
I'd like
thank
to
you.
re-
You
I'd
want
like
to
rebut
rebuttal?
that. Yes, 1 minute. We heard that the taxpayers were asked whether or not they wanted to do that. That was a referendum question that was thrown out by the courts. It was misleading. It's fear-mongering. The question, the basis for that question is, should we borrow $13 million to do a reassessment? No one in their right mind would say you would do that. So, of course, we're going to say no. The second thing is we asking the taxpayers, should we borrow $13 million? But then last year we borrowed $10 million, capital budgets borrowing to fix bad systems, to fix our assessment systems, which are broken. And it's just fear-mongering, and it shouldn't go on. We need to approach this in a business manner with the facts from people who know what they're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
No, this is factual. That's a pretty close number, $13.5, $11.5 million. The numbers are there. They're pretty accurate. The citizens were taken on the chin. That's the way it would be, and we can't let that happen. You know what I mean? This is Lackawanna County, and we got to make sure that our citizens are able to have money in their pockets. We're not here to tax them to death, and that's what will happen if reassessment happens in Lackawanna County.
Debbie?
I just want to say that I agree with Patrick. I believe that when elderly people can be and have, there's evidence out there that they will be negatively affected and impacted by a reassessment, I think you need to err on the side of caution. These are people's lives, these are people's homes. So until I see for sure that the elderly citizens of Lackawanna County are not going to be negatively impacted as a whole, I would not move forward with assessment.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. And George, this will go to you first. I want to talk about the prison. Problems at the Lackawanna County Prison have been in the news many times for more than a decade. Looking to the future, what can the county commissioners do to improve the prison and to prevent the problems that seem to keep coming up? And you have 2 minutes.
What I would do to address the prison issue is look for a more independent prison board. We currently have the Board of Commissioners on that board, as well as the warden and a couple of people on that. That in the similar fashion that the city of Scranton is putting together an ethics commission, we need to make it a little more independent. We need to get outside eyes on it to make sure that we are doing the right thing and treating it as it should be done.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, the question goes to you. Looking to the future, what can the county commissioners do to improve the prison and prevent problems?
I think in reality, the current prison board has been doing a considerably better job. I think it's going in the right direction. I think it needs more work. I think that we can continue to do those types of things. The independent committee to look at it is a good idea. I think it is going in the right direction. We've been doing some positive things in Lackawanna County as far as the prison goes at this point.
Okay. And Pat, the question goes to you.
This administration, as soon as they found out there was an issue going on at the Lackawanna County Prison, immediately turned it over to the district attorney's office, who immediately turned it over to the attorney general's office. No woman or male should have to be sexually abused in any way or any fashion. It's a very scary situation. We have a new warden out there. A lot of the situations that we're talking about happened in the past, and we're trying to rectify them. I think the warden is doing a fine job, and the actual changing of the prison board, I think it's under like the state county charter. So I don't think it's anything that we could change unless it was something that would be, I don't know if it'd be mandated by the state or something by CCAP. But right now, the way it's set up is the way the prison board's been set up as long as there's been a prison. So we are working to make sure that everyone is safe that goes into the Lackawanna County Prison at all times.
Okay, thank you. And Debbie, the question goes to you.
My knowledge of the prison is basically from my dealings with the prison through my clients in the public defender's office and through the people that I represent in the criminal in criminal defense matters. So from the outside looking in, I believe that there needs to be complete transparency with regard to the prison. I believe the vetting process needs to be stepped up. I believe that all the COs need to be trained more effectively. Also with regard to drug addiction and mental health issues, they should be trained on all those issues because a substantial amount of inmates at the prison have drug and alcohol and or mental health issues. I believe that the medical department also needs to be reviewed, and I believe that there are certain protocols that should be put in place. I don't believe, for example, that one correctional officer should ever be alone with an inmate. I believe that it should always be at least 2 correction officers with an inmate, so that in order to prevent any type of inappropriate conduct. But again, I think that education and training would go with that. I also believe in discipline. If there's any accusation, you should always err on the side of caution and remove that person pending a full investigation. And the investigation can't just be internal. It does have to be independent on the outside to make sure that the inmates are treated properly. They are inmates, but they're human beings, and they need to be treated with respect, and we need to ensure their safety, but we also need to ensure the safety of the correctional officers as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next question. And Jerry, this question will go to you first. I want to talk about the pension. Is the county's pension fund appropriately funded, and should the budget always include a pension payment? And you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I believe it should. I think that's the part of the road of ruination for the Scranton School District and for the city of Scranton. We have not funded it properly in the last 3 years. 2017, there was $1 million budgeted for it. It was not paid. 2018, nothing was budgeted for it and nothing was paid. In 2019, $500,000 is budgeted for it, and it still has not been paid. But in speaking with our CFO this past week, the proper contribution at this point is a little over $3.5 million to get us back on course. Now, the argument can be made that we're in better shape than a whole bunch of places. It's not a good argument. It's the beginning of something that caused a lot of problems in the school district, caused a lot of problems in the city of Scranton. You hear talk of a surplus. Fund the pension fund. It's our responsibility. It's our obligation. I think it should be funded.
Thank you. Pat, the question goes to you. Is the county's pension fund appropriately funded, and should the budget always include a pension payment?
We're at approximately 74% funded. Compared to the state and local municipalities, we are way beyond the curve. And for those of us who vote for a budget every year for the past 7 years, you have to make sure that you're able to make your budget, because the people cannot afford the taxes in Lackawanna County to go up. So we reach out to our financial people to make sure how our investments are going. And when I'm told by them that we're doing really, really well, and I think we made $14 point some million last year, and that we did not have to add anything to the pension, I will go with them, because we are financially stable and county government is run well. What this 74% means is that 74% of our current workers would have to retire right this second to bottom out. That would not happen. But what has happened in the past, as commissioners, Notarianni, right to my right, has actually voted against zero increase budgets. Now, that's not fiscally responsible, because around January and February, if we did not pass a budget, our stable bond rating, which took years to get back, would be destroyed. Our 7 audits that are on time, that make us financially responsible, would destroy them. Everything that makes Lackawanna County viable and all the other opportunities that we have to be able to get loans or to lower our debt would be gone. When you take an oath of office, you are responsible to the citizens of Lackawanna County to make a stand or come up with alternative ways to save money to make a budget. That has not happened. Mr. Notarianni has never done that, and he has also missed many budget meetings. If there's a time you're supposed to be a commissioner, it's from August to November when we're trying to finalize a budget.
Jerry, you need to wait until everybody answers the question, and then I'll
sure.
come back to you, okay? Debbie, the question goes to you.
I do not believe that the budget always needs to include a payment towards the pension fund. I believe that the revenue from our investments and a healthy economy will be able to grow the pension fund. I do believe that we have an obligation when we hire professionals to guide us and experts in the field to guide us, and with regard to an issue, we should follow their advice. And with regard to the retirees, as elected officials, I think we are obligated to protect and safeguard the income sources of those who retire. But my primary goal as commissioner would be to stay within the budget.
Okay, thank you. And George, that question now goes to you.
Originally, this is a pension question. It's been answered in terms of staying within our budget. It's important that we fund the pensions. I've been around long enough, and a lot of people in the room have been around long enough to know the stock market goes up and down. It goes up and down. I remember times the stock market did very poorly. We've been very blessed with a good stock market. We haven't made a pension payment in 3 years. We need to take care of the people who are taking care of everybody in this room. So I feel very strongly, not a mandatory payment every year, but 3 years is too long to go. To manage a budget, I'm hearing we have a $20 million surplus, but we won't take care of the people who take care of everyone else. We've cut economic development budgets. I shouldn't say we have. The Board of Commissioners, Patrick O'Malley, who voted for that budget, did with his partner. They eliminated infrastructure. Our roads and bridges are crumbling. You hear at the commissioners meeting, they eliminated it. They eliminated Community Reinvest in 2018 to help invest back in our communities. And that's not acceptable. It's definitely not acceptable. We have to live within our budget. We should be looking at every expense to determine how can we keep expenses down. And pension, benefits, payroll are very large expenses. We need to manage them wisely and look at all our expenses to address that.
Thank you. Jerry, did you want a rebuttal?
I did. Commissioner O'Malley talks about the surplus and the 7 years of the audits being done on time. He talks about the timing of it. Well, during the course of most of that time, when that was done under Corey O'Brien and Jim Wanczak, while Patrick O'Malley was a minority Republican commissioner. He had little or nothing to do with that. Okay, if we continue not to fund our pension fund, we will be in jeopardy of our bond rating. Our CFO tells us, you hire quality people and listen to them. Our CFO tells us we should be paying and funding our pension fund. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pat, this next question goes to you. And we've kind of talked a little bit around the idea of fiscal health of the county. So let's dig in a little bit deeper and give you the opportunity, each one of you the opportunity. What is the fiscal health of the county? What do you need to say to the voters about where we're at and where we're going over the next 4 years? And that question, Pat, goes to you first.
Lackawanna County government is good financial shape. We're efficient and effective. County government, which Mr. Notarianni alluded to, was done in the last administration, all that stuff. Well, I was the minority. He's right. But I worked with the majority because it mattered. And I work on behalf of the 214,000 citizens every day. So my goal is to make Lackawanna County government as good as it could possibly be. I'm not there to be an obstructionist and destroy Lackawanna County government, or just to go on conferences and enjoy myself. I'm there to do a job. I'm there to be a commissioner of Lackawanna County, and that's what I've done for the last 7 years and 5 months. The citizens of Lackawanna County deserve to have the right people as their commissioners. And when myself and Ms. Dominik are elected commissioner, we will be working on behalf of the citizens every day. Our finances are in good shape.
Thank you. Debbie, that question goes to you. What's the fiscal health of the county and where are we headed for the next 4 years?
It's my understanding, as Patrick said, that we do have a surplus and that we are in good shape. But, however, you need to be proactive in that regard. So I do believe that it's easy to say, we're in good shape or well, let's stay within the budget, but you also have to be proactive and come up with ways to make sure that we stay that way. So I have a lot of ideas, both Patrick and I, with regard to how to decrease costs or tax to our taxpayers with regard to the prison and other departments. And I believe the fact that there's a surplus now is a tribute to the fact of how Mr. O'Malley ran the county for the last 3 years.
Okay, thank you. George, that question goes to you. What is the fiscal health of the county and where are we headed for the next 4 years?
I think we need to hold the line on expenses in the county. There's always room for improvement. We have to make sure that we bid out for the majority of services, if not all, if possible. We need to address the surplus that is shrinking since the majority has changed a couple of years ago. We need to look into the amount of borrowing we're doing, capital borrowing to stop the gaps. If we have $20 million in the bank, why haven't we reduced taxes instead of just holding the line? We need to approach this in a business fashion and make sure that we're doing everything we can to work for all the taxpayers of Lackawanna County and run it in an efficient, business-like manner.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, that question goes to you. What is the fiscal health of the county and where are we headed for the next 4 years?
The county does have a surplus, but that being said, it is being spent. The Globe Store is well over $20 million, close to 21. We have a system that has to be put in place for the court system that is close to $1 million. There are contractors in the building every single day currently. As of 3 weeks ago, it was at over 20 million, and with the elevator for the capital improvement borrowing, it's closer to 21 million. And again, there's contractors in the building every single day. People are still working. It was going to start at $17 million. It's not true. I don't believe, and again, we have the situation where we're not funding the pension. I think that's a serious mistake. If we have the surplus, we should be funding the pension better. We just did a borrowing for $1.6 million that we were told by our CFO we did not need to borrow. It was brought up, it was put on the agenda the morning of a commissioners meeting, not the day before like it's supposed to be, the morning of a commissioners meeting. I asked to have it tabled until, and I was told, well, it has to be done now. I said, we should do this after we can speak with the CFO. He came back, and I said, Mr. Durkin, is this how this works? Do we need to do this? He said, absolutely not. We shouldn't do it. And then, that $1.6 million, we gave a finder's fee of $160,000 the person that we borrowed the money from. I think it's wrong. I don't think we are going in the right direction, and we have more employees than we've ever had in Lackawanna County.
Thank you. Debbie?
I just want to say that I think it's easy to criticize things when you aren't an actual participant in getting things done. And also, it's easy to criticize, but what's not easy is to come up with proposals to generate income and to, like I said, be proactive and make sure that the surplus remains or increases. Such an example, I have the idea of we spend $55 a day to incarcerate one individual at the Lackawanna County Prison. I believe in trying to decrease recidivism, sorry. In that, you know, with regard to the large population of drug addicts and, you know, or mental health issues in the prison, we have no treatment for those people. So what we do is we incarcerate them. They go in with an illness. They get no treatment. They leave. And then what happens is, because they left with the same illness that they went in with, they just basically go back into the prison system, and the taxpayers end up having to pay for them to stay at that prison as well. Again, so I think by implementing some sort of treatment protocols and things of that nature, we can try to avoid the ongoing vicious circle of costs.
Thank you. Pat?
Getting back to the GLOW project. The GLOW project is something that 3 administrations in the past wanted to do. This administration, barring Mr. Notarianni, who did not want to be involved, bought the building by April of 2016, the largest building in downtown Scranton to be able to fit the needs of Lackawanna County government, 255,000 square feet. All we had for years by our chief financial officer, which Mr. Notarianni alluded to, was $10 million in lease receipts and rents. That $1.5 million that went out to those costs, and this was actually acknowledged by our economic development former director, Mr. Kelly, that this was a great project and it financially worked, and it was great for economic impact in downtown Scranton to revitalize the Wyoming Avenue, the 200 block of Wyoming Avenue, and lived within the rents and leases. This is the citizens' building. It's owned by them.
Thank you. George?
Centralizing government is a great idea. And I suggested and worked with the prior administration. Other administrations looked at the Globe store, it didn't work for them. Patrick wanted to do it. I recommended that we turn it into a private developer's hand so that he get historic tax credits and do a quarter of the project for taxpayer money, not our taxpayer money, but state money. But no, he wanted to do the project himself. He went and formed a team and picked contractors to do the work. Some of those contractors were no bid contractors that contributed significantly to Commissioner O'Malley's campaign. The numbers worked at $17 million project. They took $1.3 million out of the economic development budget to buy that. We had $1 million RACP, which helped a little bit to be a contingency because we had no contingency built into the Globe Star project, and now we're hearing at $20 million. So yeah, consolidated government's great. The way it was done is terrible.
Thank you. And I just want to point out that we did allow two rebuttals per person this evening. Mr. Notarianni, you have 1 left. Everybody else has used theirs. We've got a lot of ground to cover yet tonight. So the next question, Debbie, is going to go to you first, and I want to turn to the environment. In view of the federal government's failure to acknowledge and address climate change, states, including Pennsylvania, as well as counties and cities in Pennsylvania, are taking the lead. How can Lackawanna County reduce its carbon footprint and move to the future with a commitment to low carbon energy? You have 2 minutes.
I believe that we should, as a county, we should be looking into alternative sources of energy. Obviously, we have to protect our environment, and that's a top priority for our citizens and for the future of our kids. As a mother, that's something that I'm extremely concerned about. I believe we should also explore ways to better use natural gas, solar energy, wind energy. It's my understanding that the Colts has some natural gas buses. So I believe that that is the future, and I believe that we need to be progressive in that regard. And I believe what we did, or my understanding of what's going on as Colts is just the beginning of it. And the fact that we have also a natural gas plant right here in Jessup, in Lackawanna County, those jobs alone that plant created should be an incentive to encourage natural gas.
Okay, thank you. George, that question goes to you. How can Lackawanna County reduce its carbon footprint and move to the future with a commitment to low-carbon energy?
Natural gas, Debbie mentioned the Invenergy power plant. It's cleaner energy than coal. We hear that 3 Mile Island is going to be shutting down. They're looking for huge subsidies. We have an abundance of natural gas here, which is a major economic development driver. It does create jobs. It does give us clean energy. But again, we do have to watch and make sure it's done in a proper manner. We need to protect our environment. So natural gas has been a game changer here in Northeast PA. We see the power lines going out to PA, Maryland, New Jersey. We hear another power plant coming. So natural gas is a great asset. It can help us bring jobs, bring revenue here, which will lessen the tax burden, but we have to make sure that we protect our environment at the same time.
Okay, thank you. And Jerry, that question goes to you.
It's basically the same thing. Natural gas is a plausible way of doing things at this time, but I think maybe we should try to think of other things to do, whether it would be some wind energy more used better than it's currently in the area, in the neighborhood. Maybe we should do something in Lackawanna County. I think it's a great idea. We don't have a lot of actual natural gas in Lackawanna County at this point that would be easily accessed, only in the northern tier a little bit. But again, it's a good idea, and as Dominik said, is basically on mark.
Thank you. Pat, the question goes to you.
Currently, our authority, Colts, is utilizing natural gas on some of their buses, and actually we're at a point now where we're going to actually have a gas station inside of the actual Colts facility that's going to be able to hold the gas for these vehicles. With that being said, we have a lot of acreage in Lackawanna County that we own. Maybe it's time for us, and we've talked about it in the past, maybe a solar energy farm, or we could look at wind. We have areas in Lackawanna County and properties where we actually might be able to use the windmills like they do up in Wayne County and utilize them in Lackawanna County. It's just a matter of making sure and vetting it out to see if it's proper and if it could financially pay for itself and bring money back to the taxpayers of Lackawanna County.
Okay, thank you. So this next question, we're going to stick with an environmental question, and George, this will go to you first. Let's talk about stormwater. The EPA is enforcing a mandate that municipalities control stormwater runoff that ultimately pollutes the Chesapeake Bay. The fee being put on homes, schools, and businesses is being referred to as a rain tax. Scranton has already hired environmental engineers who recommend a stormwater authority be formed to manage the new tax. What is your position on the unfunded mandate necessitating a rain tax and the creation of a regional authority?
Once again, we have an unfunded federal mandate. It's another responsibility for each and every of our 40 municipalities, and it's not right that each municipality should have to bear that burden. We have done a lot on a county basis. I was the executive director of the Regional Planning Commission, where we have worked very closely with municipalities to help them with ordinances, with zoning, land division, land developments. The county brought in the Scranton-Abington Planning Association efforts that were going on for over 10 years to coordinate it with the expertise that we have in-house. We should address stormwater separation, MS4 projects at a county level. We should provide those services and be an assistant to each municipality so that we can come up with a coordinated plan to leverage one group to do it if the municipalities want to be part of that. And that's a great approach, and it is a proper approach for county government to do that.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, a question to you.
Well, basically the same answer with the Regional Planning Commission that we do have in place. We can work with it, and the federal mandates unfunded are not fair at all to anyone in any community. But with the Regional Planning Commission, we can work with them. The Scranton system now is, with the American Water coming in, they've been working on changing their system. But it's a county-wide, a regional-wide issue, and it's got to be something that's got to be addressed studied more carefully. Maybe we can conceivably use some of the gambling funds that we do get to pay for the studies or even part of the implementation of these programs too. So we can't have a rain tax. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. We've got to figure another way of doing it. And I think with the Regional Planning Commission and with some other people involved in it, we can hopefully come up with a better idea than a rain tax.
Okay, thank you. And Pat, the question goes to you, please.
I've been reading into this quite a bit. Pittston Volunteer Fire Company is paying $2,500 for their rain tax. Volunteer fire company. They can't afford that. How can they afford that? You know what I mean? They raise money to be able to have their volunteer fire company. I'm totally against the mandate. We do not need a rain tax. I invite the citizens of Lackawanna County to come to our Tuesday, May 28th meeting in Dixon City at 6 p.m. to voice your opinion, because I'm asking my fellow commissioners to come out against this. I think the federal government, they have an infrastructure bill that they're looking at right now. They should pay for this. This is something that should be on the backs of our taxpayers, and another tax for them to have to be worried about, and another bill in their mailbox. So I'm totally against it.
Thank you. And Debbie, the question to you.
I agree with the panel that it's an unfunded federal mandate on local municipalities is clearly unfair. It's my understanding that about 50 years ago, the federal government approved a combined system for the city of Scranton. They approved it then, but now they want to change it, and they want to put the taxpayers on the hook for it. I do believe that we can't just go into this issue blind. I believe an analysis needs to be conducted. Somebody on the panel, I believe, indicated that maybe like some form of board be developed so that we can look at the municipalities in and of themselves to see what each municipality needs and whether or not it's cost effective for those municipalities to handle their own issues versus a citywide issue in the event that we're forced to do so. The other thing is Music and Taylor, they have, my understanding, they're called MS4 permits. So they are on their own fixing the issue without raising, without having to come to the county for any type of financial help, which would then cause our taxpayers to have to pay further taxes. So I believe that there are other issues and other ways for us to address it, such as these MS4 permits, but I do believe that some form of independent board needs to be brought together and analysis needs to be conducted because it's too early. You can't just jump into something like this without an adequate review of all the issues.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, the next question goes to you first. Winter in Lackawanna County. Potholes, roads, bridges, county bridges that need repair. What can the county do to continue to improve the maintenance of our roads and bridges? What are the issues for Lackawanna County that impact transportation?
A lot of the issues in Lackawanna County deal with not just Lackawanna County, but with the state. And in order to repair a bridge, it can take a couple of years of planning. We have been on a course to do 2 or 3 bridges a year for quite a few years now. I think it's important that we continue to do that. We just received a huge grant to pave the Stauffer Industrial Park with a minimum amount of match on our part. I think there are a lot of things that can be done along those lines. It's something that we have to continue to fund our infrastructure programs. It's everything comes down to the same thing. It's trying to spend your money as wisely as possible and doing the best thing you can with it. But I think it's something that we are trying to work on, and we are working with the state and other people with, and I think that it's an important part of the problem, but a lot of it ends up dealing with the boroughs and the cities too at the same time. There are a few bridges in the city of Scranton that have some serious issues too that aren't county bridges. And the state, I think we need to have to get them a little bit more involved and interested in our area.
Okay, thank you. Pat, the question goes to you. What can we do to continue to maintain county roads and bridges?
First and foremost, I'd like to thank our Roads and Bridges Department. They do a great job between snow cleanup and making sure that our roads are in good shape and pothole-free. We do have a large grant that's for the Stockford Industrial Park Road. That's going to be taking effect this year. We're always looking for monies to be able to fix our roads throughout Lackawanna County. Our bridges we've been designing them and redoing them yearly, and it's about making sure whatever priority is first is the one that's going to be up first. The state, a lot of times with the state, when we were trying to redesign the Main Street Taylor Bridge, it took years because we were waiting on monies from the state. So the big thing is to get on top of our representatives, our senator, to make sure that they're on board. We're doing a project to try to get it done adequately in an adequate amount of time as possible, because it's about the safety of our citizens and making sure that our roads are as safe as they possibly can be.
Thank you. And Debbie, the question to you.
I believe I'm at maybe a disadvantage with regard to this question because I'm an attorney, so this is not an issue that I address on a daily basis, but I think the potholes in Scranton and in the surrounding areas is an issue, and I think that the state should carry some of the burden in helping to alleviate those issues. I don't believe that it just should be a county problem, but again, I would have to look more into the issue because it's not something that I, as a personal injury and criminal defense attorney, deal with.
Okay. Thank you. George, the question to you.
If anyone has driven around this year, you know what state of disrepair our roads and bridges are in. Our bridges are crumbling. You see potholes everywhere. With the majority of commissioners, they voted for the last 2 years to cut our infrastructure budget by over $2 million, to say, let's let it go and let's just see if we get by. We hear about a surplus. We're not using that money to do the potholes and the bridges. We were lucky enough to get a grant which was submitted from the Department of Economic Development to do Stafford Park, or else that money would not have been there either. There's a 54-cent per gallon tax on our fuel that's supposed to go for our infrastructure. It's not. It pays for state police. So we have something that's been set up. We have a fee and a tax that we all pay if we drive cars, and it's not going to where it was intended. And we see that happening quite often. I was a planning executive with PennDOT in the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We're faced with hard decisions every day of, hey, we need these 50 bridges fixed, but we can only do the top 3, the ones that are crumbling and pose safety hazards. It has to change. So first, the county has to address that and put significant funds in, but responsibly, to keep our roads and bridges safe that are counties. We need to work with our legislators to say, stop taxing us and not giving us the benefits that tax is intended for. So we need to work with our legislators to make sure that changes. The Democratic Caucus has a Rebuilding America Infrastructure Task Force down in our Capitol. I was asked to spend a day with Congress to give them ideas on how to work as someone who's working every day, rolling up the sleeves, getting the job done. And I spent a day with Congress saying you need to help too on a federal level to bring us some relief for the challenges we have with our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on now to economic development. And Pat, this question will go to you first. Imagine that you've been asked to speak with a business or company that's considering relocating to the county. What would you tell them about the county to sell it to them? And what promises, if any, would you be willing to make to get them to relocate?
We have numerous options. We'd work with our Planning and Economic Development Department, see what we could do with LERTAs, KOZ zones, and the Chamber of Commerce. We've had a disconnect with the Chamber of Commerce for so many years because Mr. Kelly has been the director, he did not believe in our Scranton Chamber of Commerce, but that's something we're going to be actually working with in the near future. The Chamber of Commerce is a huge part of bringing businesses into our community, and we got to make sure that they're on board in everything that we're trying to lure new businesses into our community. You have to make sure that we have opportunities for their citizens. We have a great quality of life in Lackawanna County. The citizens would come here, they would have opportunities to be able to raise a family, adequate highway systems for the businesses, and all other opportunities. There's a lot here in Lackawanna County, and we could draw a lot of great businesses here. And why shouldn't we have the bigger businesses here? It's about time.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, the question goes to you.
I think that we made a step in the right direction with the development or the Lackawanna County Government Center. I believe that has really revitalized the downtown area. I see a couple of businesses already, new ones coming into the downtown area, just walking around through the courthouse square. I believe that, we are located, we have a very good proximity to the highways. We have many colleges in the area. I think possibly maybe a tax abatement or some other incentives. But personally, I believe that the turning the Globe store into what it is today was a step in the right direction of revitalizing downtown Scranton and Lackawanna County and trying to attract new business.
Okay, thank you. George, the question goes to you.
For the last 6 years, my focus has been on economic development and creating family-sustaining jobs here in Lackawanna County. I've been a very good partner, a very close partner with the Chamber of Commerce. We've put together documents that we marketed together to show the highlights of Lackawanna County. We've represented the state of Pennsylvania together at biotech conferences, and we've done numerous trade shows to try to bring businesses in. Right now, unemployment's hovering a little bit under 4%. The firms that come in here, the first question they ask is, what about workforce? And that is one of the best assets we have. It's our people. They're willing to go to work, they stay at work, they do great jobs. And that's what we sell our regions, and that's what we're selling to businesses. It's nice having incentives, but we also need more than just a 10-year tax incentive where they bail out after 10 years and move somewhere else, whoever's offering the best deal. So our assets are our people. It's a culture, and it's a willingness to do work. And if you talk to the firms that we've brought in over the last 6-7 years, they've been very impressed with our workforce, and they've been expanding. So I would lead with the assets we have. Cheap energy, very cheap energy. It's easy for manufacturing here to create jobs. We partner with the workforce development. I was on their executive board to create jobs, to create training for people so they can do better for themselves and their families by getting the skills, and really focus on connecting the dots with internships and tying the jobs that are currently available. And there are over 400 jobs available in this area that are family-sustaining jobs. It's matching up the right skill sets and getting those people together with the businesses and the colleges and the trade schools to ensure that there are jobs for our youth so that they stay here, and that there's jobs so we could get our youth back that left for other career paths because they couldn't find a job here.
Thank you. Jerry, the question goes to you.
I'm kind of taken aback by the remark about the Chamber of Commerce. I would know the Chamber President longer and better than anyone here. Bob Durkin is a personal friend, someone I know a long, long time. He and George have a great working relationship. That is not the case at all. George and the Chamber have a working relationship. Have they had differences of opinions? Sure they have. Everyone does. But they work very, very well together. As our economic development director, again, hired by Wanczak and O'Brien, he's done a great job in helping the Chamber go forward. We do have many good things up in the Jessup and the Archbold and the Mid-Valley and some in Scranton. More needs to be done, more can be done. But again, it's a continuing effort on everyone's part to work together and make it a better place.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, this next question will go to you. Kind of falls along with economic development. So Lackawanna County is a college county. There are 8 colleges and universities within the borders of Lackawanna County. And yet we hear all the time about what we call brain drain. So we have students who are coming here, going to college and then leaving because they can't find the right jobs. And then also local students who stay here for college but then have to leave. What can the county commissioners do to help prevent or slow down brain drain?
The county has a good internship and outreach program. I think maybe those programs need to be advertised more, and the students in our local colleges need to be made aware of the opportunities that exist here in Lackawanna County. And again, not to go back to it, but again, I believe that the Globe store taking over that and revitalizing that area. Scranton is kind of like the capital, more or less, of Lackawanna County, for lack of a better way to explain it. And I believe that we really have that Globe store undertaking has really revitalized that area. And I think that downtown is becoming more desirable, I believe, in Scranton area. But I do believe that I think that these students maybe just need to be educated more on what is available here, because maybe they just don't know.
Hey, thank you. George, what can the county commissioners do to help slow down brain drain?
I have 3 daughters. 2 of the 3 daughters live out of state. And what I'm working to do is create a place where they want to live, a place where our youth find vibrant communities, improve arts and culture, which are economic development drivers, work with manufacturers and work with companies to bring good family-sustaining jobs here, not just strictly manufacturing, not just warehouse and distribution, but great jobs. We need to create a place where the kids want to live, and a lot of times, if you have a place where they want to live, they'll find a job because they want to find themselves first. Boomerangers, find a place, find a job that they can actually raise a family-sustaining wage. Twice, I had to move out of this area and go back to New York City to find jobs because I couldn't find a job here where my heart and my family was here in Lackawanna County. And it wasn't to 10, 12 years ago I decided to come back, and I'm just going to make the best of it and do whatever it takes to have my family set their roots here so that they don't go somewhere else. So it really is working with companies, bringing companies in, and also giving them the quality of life and the excitement. A lot of them are going to leave home just because they wanted to. When I married my wife, 2 days after she graduated from the U right here, we took off to New York City and worked for Wall Street for a couple of years, but we came back as soon as we could. I want to help create that place where my kids want to come back home and want to settle down here, raise a family if they choose to do so.
Thank you. Jerry, what can the county commissioners do to help slow brain drain?
Again, the same thing as George with our children. Our son graduates from Temple Law, 16th of May. Very happy about that. Our daughter's in New York. If they would like to come back, I'd like to have that opportunity. As far as the statements, the development in downtown Scranton, and Debbie's right, there is some activity down there, but it's been by private developers. It's been done by Don Mamano and Charlie Jefferson and Art Russo and other people. Those buildings are going and they're filled, and they're continuing to do those kind of things. The Globe store certainly is not the answer. It's absolutely not the way to go about developing the downtown. Those people have been very successful. When they're finished with their buildings, they have waiting lists now to fill those buildings up, those apartments and those storefronts. It's again, you need to get, and they've been getting help from the state and from local, county, city. That's the route to take, not the county doing something. 2 other sets of commissioners did not do the Globe store because once it got past $17 million, I'm speaking with Jim Wanczak just this past week, After $17 million, it's no longer, as the term used, revenue neutral. It's not. And we're over $21 million. It was not the answer to fix the downtown. The private developers are the answer to fix the downtown, and the help that we can give them is the answer.
Thank you. Pat, the question to you, what can county commissioners do to help slow brain drain?
We've been working with Career Technology Center to try to figure out what type of employment there will be in Lackawanna County, so these kids are actually ready and willing to either go right onto the workforce or go on to a trade school. Also, we have done work with Lackawanna College to try to help them to develop different programs with grant monies that we've received. We try to work with all of our colleges to try to figure out ways to keep our best and brightest in Lackawanna County. There's no reason for them to go outside the area. There's a lot of good opportunities here. We just got to find a way to keep them here.
Okay, thank you. George, this next question goes to you first. Let's talk about ethics. Can you describe what it means to be a public servant acting ethically, and what policy changes, if any, would you recommend to ensure county government is run as ethically as possible?
The first thing I would do, let's take the question in order. Define ethics. I had the pleasure of studying to be a priest for 8 years. So we've had a lot of ethics classes, moral classes, religion, theology, philosophy. My dad always told me, do the right thing. And that's a matter of doing the right thing for the good of all, for the good of each and every resident and taxpayer here in Lackawanna County, to make sure that you're above reproach. We need an independent ethics board at the county. We need a separate, fresh set of eyes that will take a look when there's an issue. The ethics policy that exists at the county, we should change that, and we should adopt the state policy. It's very clear, and it's very concise as to what you can and cannot do. So I would strongly recommend an ethics board to address the issues that pop up, because interpretations are left to the whim of a certain few if it meets the needs of people in power, and it should be much more independent.
Okay, thank you. Jared?
I think the need for a outside ethics committee board that the city has just begun to implement is a great idea. Follow state laws, state rules. There are situations where large banks, they actually pay attention to inviting public officials, because they monitor that. They can't invite you and you can't go. We do have a policy in place now that says we can't accept anything. But it can be ignored on occasion. But if there was someone in place to pay closer attention to it locally, that would be a good idea, and I would be in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. Pat, the question to you. What does it mean to be a public servant acting ethically, and what policy changes would you recommend, if any?
Well, I work on behalf of the citizens every day, and they're my bosses. That's the way it is. The citizens of Lackawanna County is my boss. But if we want to get into ethics and things such as that, here's one right here. This is sworn testimony from when Mr. Notarianni was suing me to become the minority commissioner. In the sworn testimony, it basically says that when Mr. Notari took office, that there would be firings, and it named them. It's literally in the document. It's a lot thicker than this one. This is just some of the main, how do you say, juicy parts, okay? George himself was one of the people that was going to be on the chopping block.
You need to put that down. There are no props at this debate.
Okay. Okay, with that being said, we know who at this table have done things that are unethical. And with that being said, we also have a situation where we had Mr. Kelly, as the Director of Planning and Economic Development, actually tried to buy property off the repository in December of 2018. Now, you're not supposed to do that, and that's property that's actually, at this point, almost getting a LERTA put through. And I have the documentation on that. When you're the director of that type of department, you are not supposed to be trying to line your own pockets by utilizing that office to do such things. I have the documents right here. It is factual.
In your closing.
And the organization was Davis and Kelly Advisors LLC. It is fact, and they went to the Oliphant Borough and requested.
Thank you. Debbie, the question goes to you.
I'm going to try to take a positive spin on this. Mr. Kelly indicated that, you need a new set of eyes. I am those new set of eyes. This is my first political endeavor. I believe I offer a fresh perspective. I believe that transparency is an absolute must with regard to government. I believe that people need to put their differences and egos aside and try to work together to have an effective government. I believe that swift action needs to be taken if any allegation arises, and that some form of independent investigation needs to be conducted with regard to any type of inappropriate or unethical behavior. I also believe in self-reporting. Instead of trying to hide something that occurs within the county or wherever you are an elected official, it's better just to bring it to the forefront and address it before it becomes a larger scale issue. So I just believe in, like I said, I think if one word was to sum it up, it would be transparency is what I believe in.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
It's my last rebuttal.
Your last rebuttal.
I would like to say, I think Ms. Dominik's remarks are very refreshing. As far as me wanting to fire anyone, that was not the case ever. Okay, I was put in a position because Commissioner O'Malley decided to change and side with the Republican commissioner and form a new majority. I was without a solicitor. I still am without a solicitor. Okay, it's not something that's wrong. I had my friends have jobs. I don't need to fire anyone. I want to look at everybody. There's no question about that. But I didn't do anything that would not be ethical. I have no reason to. That's the end of me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have time for one more question, and it will be a 1-minute response time. And this question will go first to you, Jerry. So currently, the Board of Commissioners conducts its open public meetings on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. I know that occasionally it moves around and it's in the evening, but I checked the minutes on the website yesterday, and most of the meetings were at 10 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. This time is not necessarily the most convenient for county residents who might want to participate in their county government. What would it take for you to advocate for a more citizen-friendly Board of Commissioners meeting time? 1 minute, Jerry, it goes to you.
I really don't have an issue with it. The only time I'd have an issue with it when it would be far away into the outreaches of Lackawanna County in the winter. That would be my biggest concern. But other than that, I think that conceivably can happen. We'd have to look at it a little bit further, but I don't have an issue with it.
Okay. Pat, the question to you.
We currently have 4 on-the-road meetings. I think we have 4 or 5 budget meetings that are on the road. We try to get them out to all of the different parts of Lackawanna County, and if we need to add some more, I'd have no problem with that.
Okay, Debbie?
The same with me. I would have no issue with moving it, and I don't see why it would be problematic to do so. It's about, the citizens and making it more accessible.
Okay, thank you. And George?
It's typically 2 commissioner meetings per month. I'd like to do 1 per month in the evening so that taxpayers can attend. This way we won't have the Board of Commissioners talking to their viewing audience and actually talking to people in front of them can raise issues. So I'm a strong proponent of being out in the communities, talking to taxpayers and give them an opportunity to come speak and witness government at its best at their communities, not having to take time off from work.
Thank you. That concludes, unfortunately, the time that we have for questions this evening. Before we invite the candidates to give their 2-minute closing statements, I want to invite all of you once again, to join the League of Women Voters. We are a volunteer organization, and we're nonpartisan. There is information, I don't know if there were programs here, but if you visit lwvlackawanna.org, you can find the information on our membership there. Also, again, we are all volunteers. If you appreciate this type of event, I invite you also to make a donation to support our efforts on your way out the door this evening. There'll be someone at the door with a basket, and we'd appreciate your support. It helps us underwrite some of the costs that we have. With that, I will move to closing statements, and we did a drawing to see who would give the first closing first, and then we'll move in around robin as we did with all of the questions. And first, we will hear from George Kelly. George, the microphone is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. The first thing I just want to address is the ethics issue that Commissioner O'Malley brings up. That is why I'm asking for an independent ethics board, and we follow the state rules. The reason being is Commissioner O'Malley, with his handful of solicitors, can interpret the rules and the ethics statements to say, that's not good, because it suits his needs. I followed procedure. I followed the proper process. The repository, tax repository, that's not my department. I have nothing to do with them. I don't do business with them in an official capacity or have any decision-making. But he used it to make it a political issue. Before I acquired the property, it's 5 acres. It's a mine fire in the middle of Oliphant. What a mess. There's about 50 acres on fire. I did it because of a development project that's going on that's going to bring 8 million square feet under roof and 5,000 jobs plus. And we wanted to make sure that no one would come in, get that piece of property, and break up that project. I told Oliphant Borough about it when they asked me to do consulting for them. They wanted me to pay me to help them do this project. I offered for the consulting for free, and I said, hey guys, I'm in the process of buying this. You guys approved already. Do you want it? Do you want to put it here? Where should we park this piece of property so we can get this mine fire out and get good jobs to our neighborhood? They said, George, it wouldn't look good if you were buying 5 acres and you're telling us we should give an alert or a tax incentive, local economic revitalization tax assistance program. So what I did is I went back to the county and said, listen, if this isn't going to look good, let's just cancel this. Give me back the $3,300 because I was willing to give it to Oliphant Borough, whoever they directed. But let's focus on the issues. We need jobs that pay, and that's what we're committed to do, Jerry and I. Create family-sustaining jobs. Institute training programs. I was the executive director of the Workforce Board. Continue the good work that we're doing with the Workforce Board. We need to have vibrant communities, places where our kids want to live. Continue the investments we've done to date. And I have a laundry list of accomplishments. My biggest accomplishment is hiring a motivated, enthusiastic team. And finally, government that works for everyone here in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, George Kelly. And next, we'll hear from Jerry Notarianni.
Back to the ethics situation. Patrick O'Malley had borrowed that $1.6 million that our CFO said not to do. Gave a $160,000 finder's fee. I wrote on that resolution, no per CFO. And it's one of his largest contributors that he did borrow that money from. We didn't need to borrow the money. We talk about we have a surplus. There's no reason in the world for us to borrow it. Absolutely none. Our CFO said that. We've got a lot of great employees in Lackawanna County. We lost a lot of great employees in Lackawanna County. I have nothing to hide as far as county business is concerned. I don't sell the county anything. I did at one time and it wasn't much. I don't any longer. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And next, we'll hear from Patrick O'Malley.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here today, and I'd like to thank all of our servicemen and women that are fighting for our freedoms every single day, and all of our veterans back here and those that lost their lives, because we wouldn't be able to be here today if it wasn't for all of them. With that being said, George was denied on the property. And the truth is, as the director, you are not supposed to buy property in something that we are looking towards as a development when you are the planning and economic director. That is not the way it's supposed to be. I don't have a bunch of minions trying to figure out a way to hurt the people that are there. It's not that way. He wasn't supposed to do it, and he got caught. That's what happened. They had an LLC that was actually not supposed to be there while he was the Economic and Development Director. That's what we have. There's no lie to this. Get back to Jerry. Jerry was suing to be the minority commissioner. It is fact, it is documented, and it talks about all of the firings. It talks about a lot of things that a lot of citizens don't realize, that Jerry was reaching out to the current commissioner and asking her to be the chairwoman of the Board of Commissioners. The problem is she thought he was so unethical that she came to me. So that's what happened. And that is in the document. It is fact. It is sworn testimony. That is about the ethics part. With that being said, Lackawanna County deserves to have commissioners that care about the citizens every single day of the week, that are going to be there to make sure there's no tax increases and no reassessment and quality of life opportunities. And that's what O'Malley and Dominik will accomplish if we are elected on May 21st. I ask for your support because it really matters to the citizens of our community and it matters to future generations. And also, I just want to add one real quick thing. The Globe store is at $18.8 million, and when George was making $77,000 a year as the director, he had no problem with the project.
And Debbie, the newcomer to all of this, you get the last word.
I'm not going to talk about ethics because my ethics have never been called into issue. I'm an attorney. I got into this for one reason and one reason only, and it's to try to help people on a larger scale. I chip away with it in the public defender's office where we help people, and that is my primary passion, is to help people. I understand that we have to look at it from it's a business and we have to stay within budget, which is important to me. I'm a single mother, but I got into this because I have a 2-year-old and I fear for his future. I think that there are things that we need to start worrying about and move on from what has already been done. The center is there, the government center is there, so let's just deal with it and address issues that are current, such as the opioid epidemic and the fact that our kids are dying. The fact that we need to try to educate people on that issue, the issues in the prison. I think we need to move forward. I have a fresh perspective. These 3 gentlemen have all worked in government, other than being an attorney and a public defender. That's pretty much all I know. But I do know that I'm a quick learner and I'm a hard worker. And even in law, I've been practicing for 19 years, things arise that you're not always familiar with, but you tackle the issue and you do the best you can, and that's what I would do as commissioner. I do believe I can offer a fresh perspective, a new perspective, and again, I'm all about moving forward and being progressive and trying to make a better future for not only us, but for our children, and moving forward with positivity is my goal.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all of our candidates for their commitment to democracy and for being here this evening, and all of you for joining us here. Don't forget to vote on May 21st and get all your friends and relatives to vote too. Thanks so much. We'll see you again in the fall. Thank you.